Ecclesia Ecumenical Leadership Radio presents Leadership Blindspots, equipping Christian leaders to identify their weaknesses. The following is a special 7-part leadership teaching series focusing on helping leaders to reach their full potential by identifying their blind spots. Our facilitator for this teaching is His Grace Bishop Martin C. Wilson. Bishop Wilson is presiding prelate and visionary of Ecclesia Ecumenical Leadership and Church Growth Network.
Grace and peace. This is Coach Martin Wilson. So glad to be with you. Thank you for tuning in for lesson number 3 of Leadership Blind Spots, equipping leaders to identify their weaknesses. So many times, as we said in some of our previous broadcasts, that we've been taught that we can just excuse our weaknesses, or that we can just work on our strengths, and that our weaknesses will take care of themselves. Well, I don't believe that. I believe that when those weaknesses are there, that they are blind spots, and those blind spots have the potential to really hurt us in the long run. So what we're talking about is equipping Christian leaders to identify the blind spots in their life. So tonight we're talking about no feedback, no growth. No feedback, no growth. So important that you have feedback in your life. So we're going to look at that tonight. Listen, in this lesson tonight, we're going to talk about no feedback, no growth. And feedback is defined as information about reactions to a product, a person's performance to a task. Now, the last part of this is the part of this definition that I think really speaks to us, and it says that feedback is used as a basis for improvement. When you get feedback, the reason that you get it is so that you can take the information that you have and that you can begin to take that feedback and begin to make sure that you hear it, that you listen to it, so that you can then better yourself. You can get a better gauge on your leadership. And I know that most of us here are leaders in some capacity. I want to thank all of those that have been watching because I know that in some capacity you are a leader, and it's so important that you get the feedback so that you can take your leadership to that next level. So now, if the truth be told, nobody really likes feedback, especially when we perceive, or our perception of the feedback is that it's critical. We perceive that it's critical. And the key in that statement, the key word in that statement is we perceive. We perceive our perception of it. And we've got to be really careful as leaders that we don't allow our perception of the situations that we're dealing with to be the determining factor on how we as leaders respond. So let's talk about perception. Let's talk about perception. Perception is a word that I deal a lot with because I think perception is, it deals with a lot of things, and it influences us in a whole lot of areas that we really may not even know that we're being influenced in. There's a quote that I heard a few years ago that really helped me to put the brakes on my perception and allowing my perception to control how I respond to situations. And the quote says that the map is not the territory. The map is not the territory. Now, what that is, when I say that the map is not the territory, that is a metaphysical example that illustrates the difference between what is real and what is simply what I believe about what's real. Now, no matter who you are, no matter how old you are, how young you are, there is always going to be differences, slight or great, between what is really happening and what you perceive to be happening around you. Now, as a leader, you've got to really understand that when that those slight differences between how you perceive something to be happening and what really is happening can make a real difference. Now, the phrase was coined by a Polish American scholar. His name was Alfred Korgitsky. And what he was saying is that our perception of the world is generated inside. Our perception of the world is generated inside. In other words, it's the map of what we feel is what is reality, because the map is not the territory. So when you pull out your phone and you put in a Google map, you put in your destination in a Google map. Google Map is so delicate now that you can go and I could pull up my house and look at my house. But that is only an image. That is only a picture of my house. That is not the territory. That is not reality. So you got to understand that reality exists outside of your mind. But so many times our perception of situations causes us to deal with the particular situation in the wrong manner. Now, as leaders, as I said, we got to be very careful not to start believing that the model that we're creating of reality, or that we're constructing of reality, is how things really are. Now, why did I say all that? Because we're through our perception, through our senses, how we feel, see, and all those things, we as leaders, we create this image in our mind of who we think we are and how we think our leadership is. In our minds, we create a perception of our leadership inside of what we think that we look like. And and what we're talking about tonight, thank you those of you that are joining, that no feedback, no growth. Now, we've created this perception of our leadership and how we think our leadership is. So the reason that feedback is so critical is because feedback introduces new information that sometimes will help us to get a clearer picture than what we're conjuring up inside of our mind. As leaders, we've got to understand that many times it causes us to see that the image that we've created in our minds about our leadership and our leadership ability is sometimes just an illusion. Sometimes we're not as great a leader as we think we are. Sometimes we're not as great a preacher or a great a teacher as we think we are. We're never going to be able to really see the way that we really are and the quality of our leadership unless we're getting feedback from other people. That feedback helps us to get a clearer picture of who we really are. There may be some areas that the feedback will come that we thought we were great in, but now we have feedback, and the feedback brings clarity. So now it gives us the opportunity to correct that area and become a better leader. Other people see what we ignore. Other people see what we as leaders ignore. Now, the people that are closest to us, they can always see the weaknesses and the things that threaten our ministry as a result of our leadership blind spots. They can see it. Many of us have ministries, and we want those ministries to go as far as they possibly can go. But we have to really be honest with ourselves that other people that are close to us, that walk with us, they can see the blind spots and the threatening things that we're doing in our leadership that could really cost us our ministry. So often we're so busy. We're so busy living the life of a minister, of a preacher, of a leader, that we're running the ministry and we're not able to see what is really happening. We can't see what we need to see. In this section, I want to tell you about the Johari window. In 1955, two American psychologists, Joseph Lift and Harrington Ingham, They developed a model which is called the Johari window, which is a combination of both of their names put together. And what this model does is it shows the difference in how we see ourselves versus how others see us. And the model's really very simple. And what it does is it explores the fact of how other people have a different vantage point from which to examine their environment than we do. And we're talking about people that are in our leadership influence. So now within the Johari window, there are 4 vantage points. The first one is known to others. In other words, these are things about us that other people know. Then there is the area that is not known to others. Those are areas that only we know. And then there is the areas that is known to self. And those two are the combination of what others know and what we know about ourselves. And then there is the area that is not known to self. And the quadrants look like this. The open, which is what we know about ourselves and what others know about us. Then there is the hidden. That is the area that we know about ourselves, but others do not know about us. And then over here, and I kind of jumped over one purposely, is the unknown. These are areas about our leadership that these are motives and intentions that are subconscious that really influence our leadership. Unknowingly, we don't even realize that they have such an influence. Could be something out of childhood, something that has been instilled in us that we don't even realize that is influencing our leadership. And then there is the area that is not known by us. It's not known by self, but others can see it very clearly. And that is the area of the blind spot. Now, and that's the area that we're dealing with. The area of the blind spot, so that we can equip you as a leader to better understand what that blind spot is. So there's your open, which is things that you know and others know about you. There is the hidden, those things that you only know about yourself. There is the unknown to self, which is your blind spots. And then there are those things, those subconscious influencers that influence your leadership, and you don't even know that they're there. Now, the main objective of this particular model is to help you understand that we need to expand the area of openness. Now, the way that you expand the area of openness into those hidden areas of your life is that you as a leader have to be more transparent. Of course, this has to be done in an environment of trust around those people that you trust the most. You've got to become transparent with them and allow them to see more of who you are as an individual. Now, then we still have the area of the blind spots. How do we get into the area of blind spots with our openness? That only comes through feedback. We get into those blind spots by allowing others to give us feedback on how we are doing as a leader, areas that they see that we may be weak in, that we can now strengthen because we have new information. So transparency goes into the hidden areas. That's us disclosing, sharing more about ourselves. Then the feedback comes from other people, which helps us to cover our blind spots. And when you have a transparency and you're getting feedback, what it does is it takes the area of the unknown and it helps you to discover those unknown areas of your life that could be totally helpful, or that could be unhelpful to influencing your leadership. This is the Johari window. Thank you, Bishop McCoy, for telling me that I had no sound. Listen, how does this Johari window help us? How does it help us? It helps us because, as we said before, those people that are around us can see our weaknesses more clearly than we can, and we need them to help us show us our blind spots. Now, we talked about it on last week that mistakes reveal our weaknesses, but many of us ignore our mistakes. The Johari window teaches us that there's hidden areas in our life that we need more transparency as leaders in, and that there is areas that are blind spots that we have to get feedback in. We've got to get feedback. Can you guys hear me now? Please let me know. Please let me know that you can hear me. So that you've got to get that feedback, because if you're not getting that feedback from people, then you're going to find yourself constantly being in a struggle when it comes to your leadership. If you're going to become more effective as a leader, you need those people that have been around you. You need their feedback to help you to reveal those blind spots that you can't see or that you have not been willing to see. Your vantage point is from what you're doing. But a lot of times our leadership has its effect on the people. And so their vantage point is very different from ours. Our vantage point is what we're doing for the people. And we could be doing something that we think is good for the people, but their vantage point is very different. And their vantage point is receiving the effect of our leadership. And please don't forget, the people that you lead, that is your most important and your most valuable commodity. So you need their feedback. Conclusion. Conclusion. I'm doing this particular broadcast live tonight. Time ran right up on me, so I had to do it live tonight, a live broadcast. So I do thank those of you that have tuned in. So in my conclusions, others see what we can't see about our own leadership. You got to find those people that are around you that you trust, those people that you trust to give you a non-biased explanation, non-biased information about your leadership. You've got to ask them to tell you what they have seen are some of your weaknesses as a leader, or that they have observed in your leadership. Now, it may be hard, but you will never know if you don't humble yourself enough to ask, because people are not going to share. The people that follow you, some people will love you too much. They will love you to the point that they won't tell you what you need to know. And as a leader, you need to know what your blind spots are. So you've got to ask them. You've got to be humble enough to receive the information that they're giving you. If you want to grow, your growth depends on receiving this particular information and feedback. Listen, until next time, this is Coach and Bishop Martin Wilson. Thank you, and God bless.